ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men Hellfire Vigil #1. This is supposed to be the replacement for the Hellfire Gala that was held pretty much, every year. Actually, it was every year of the Krakoan era, and now that the Krakoan era is over, it looks like Tom Brevoort and all the rest of the ex-writers under his office, they are wanting to keep that tradition alive. And I'm not gonna lie, for an administration, I say administration as if he's a president, but for like a editorial office that has seemed incredibly negative towards the Krakoan era, man, I'm not gonna hold you, this was kind of a surprise. I was actually expecting this to not be good. Like, I knew, like, the people who I know can competently tell a good story no matter what framework it is hidden within, I knew they would do well. Like, I knew the parts would be good, but would the whole, would it be as good as, the sum of its parts? I didn't expect it, honestly. I actually kind of thoroughly enjoyed this. This might be one of the few things, when all of the office is brought together to collaboratively work on something. This might be like the one time I'm like, y'all got it. Y'all finally understood the assignment. I think that maybe Tom might know what the hell he's doing. I say that because the X-Men Hellfire Vigil, it's meant to be a memorial. It's meant to be a memorial. This is not a party. This is a memorial for the Krakoan era. Imagine a funeral. I saw a lot of people getting really up in arms on the internet about this too, because everybody's like, oh my god, they're not dressing as fabulous as they did in the Hellfire Galas. I was like, yeah, because that's a gala. This is a vigil. This is different. More somber. People, use your brain parts. Now, there are multiple different stories in this. I'm not gonna focus on all of them because honestly, most of them don't really go anywhere or amount to anything. I just wanna focus on the stuff that I think actually will pay dividends down the road and maybe result in something that could be very interesting storytelling. So let's go ahead and start with the whole Cyclops don't wanna go. Cyclops does not want to go to the Hellfire Vigil because he doesn't see it as something to celebrate. And honestly, I don't disagree with him on his feelings towards that. I mean, yes, are Psylocke and Jean Grey correct in their assessment that yes, he should go, because this is not about being reminded of what you lost, but also reminding you of how good things were and what we still have, and so on and so on. So I totally get that part. I'm not upset about that at all. And with everything Cyclops has going on right now, I think the thing that's gonna get lost in the sauce on his particular portion of the Hellfire Vigil is that people are still not paying attention to the fact that Cyclops is dealing with PTSD. He is dealing with, you can even say on some level, a fit of imposter syndrome. He's been having panic attacks, and technically some of this culminated in the finale of X-Manhunt. But I think because people, let's be honest, I know a lot of folks just are real quick to forget things. The moment that they pass, they've moved on to the next thing. I have noticed some people are completely ignoring that aspect of Cyclops right now. He is not in a good headspace. And we even know from the preview of the upcoming X-Men #20 that this is not the end of his PTSD road. It's not the end of his panic attacks. He's probably due to have another one very soon. So I think that what they're doing here with Cyclops, I know some people are just gonna see it as him just being a whiny boy. That's not what it is. It's a lot deeper than that, and I kind of just accepted that that's par for the course with a lot of people when it comes to showing empathy for Cyclops. Like if Wolverine starts crying, oh my god, Wolverine's crying, but the second Cyclops, oh, yeah, man up, yeah. That's how y'all do Cyclops. That's how y'all do Cyclops, man. Y'all are mean. But anyway, I will also say, and I actually gave Gail Simone a shout out on this on Threads. Y'all know me. I normally do not give two squirrel farts about superheroes and their if the relationship is something I think is actually going to go somewhere, like it's actually gonna matter, sure. But like when it comes to like little like flings or whatever, little trysts between superheroes, I generally could not care less. In this particular instance, I thought it was pretty cool because, so in this, we see both our characters, from both the uncanny and the adjectiveless X-Men side of things. Ransom and Temper, they are in a relationship. They are dating now. And it's interesting because, well, for probably the more obvious reason, because of the rift that has grown between both the, Alaskan adjectiveless X-Men and the Louisiana uncanny X-Men. It's nice to kind of see that there is some camaraderie between them on some level, because as we saw during the raid on Greymalkin, and to a lesser extent in X-Manhunt, they're just not seeing eye to eye on a lot of things, on really anything. Cyclops and Rogue have had their differences, and at some point or another, I feel like there is going to be another shoe that's going to drop with them, but it does seem like fences are ready to be mended. But it was so good to see that, Ransom and Temper actually had something going on, that they were kind of bridging that gap. Also, it was really nice too, because this was an instance where we're seeing two black characters who are showing an interest in one another and doing it in a way that, well, yes, Gail, whole white woman, but it did actually feel authentic to a black love experience. It felt authentic to it. So I was like, you know what? This plays. Really, the main reason why I think I actually like this a lot too is because, man, I'm so glad that they didn't do what I thought they were trying to do. Not Gail, but more Jed MacKay. I was really worried that Jed was gonna try and do some bullshit where Temper and Kid Omega got back together, because it kind of seemed like that might be the direction they were probably gonna try and go, but I'm really glad they didn't, because, Kid Omega is the worst. I like the character a lot more than I used to, but he is still the absolute worst. Keep him far away from Temper. They can be friends, but I do not want to. I bet not see Kid Omega try and insert himself back into the conversation. I don't ever want to see that shit again. The next thing that I want to talk about, and this is kind of along a similar line, so we're going to keep it there. Sophie Cuckoo, technically more from the NYX side of things, Axo from the Exceptional X-Men side of things. Looks like they got a little something going on. That one, I think, is a little bit more difficult to suss out. I'm almost more inclined to not really put a label on what they got going on. I thought it was cool too. Once again, I like seeing characters who have been going through some shit get to pick up a dub. That's always a good time, I think, personally. Sophie has gone through a lot, having recently been disconnected, from, her fellow sisters, the rest of the Stepford Cuckoos, and, over the course of NYX, and, Axo having just, kind of recently come into his own with his power. They're all kind of just figuring their shit out, so I love to see it. Now, one thing that I had saw making the rounds, probably the reason why you clicked on this video in the first place, is Storm having a baby. Well, not now. So in one of the segments of this, we learned that Storm is going to be a mother. Now, the way this is told and the way this is framed, it's told out of order. When we first see Storm in this issue, yes, she is making the proclamation she's going to be a mother. She seems really proud. And then we jump back into the past and we see her buying the pregnancy test, having a really up interaction with the sales clerk behind the counter, who was just being messy as all get out. I was totally here for how Storm read them for filth. I was totally here for it. But then you kind of jump around and you find out that the pregnancy test that Storm took, it was negative. However, Eternity does give her a glimpse into the future. Now, this is largely done because Eternity is trying to keep Storm focused and make sure that she's ready for the upcoming fight against Oblivion. However, at this particular point, as we already know, Oblivion is already dead. Oblivion has already been sent to the Shadow Realm by Hadad, who is on his way to kick off the Thunder War against Storm. This is information we know, this is not information Storm knows. As far as Storm and Eternity are concerned, they're fighting Oblivion. They have no idea that he's already been defeated. Eternity is just trying to keep Storm focused on what's going on. And that is how we get a glimpse into the future, that on June 16th at 6:16 a.m., it could be p.m. actually, who knows? That part's not really quite as important, but I mean, it is technically, but basically, because, you know, the young girl by the name of Furaha, which basically, for those who don't know, that is Swahili for happiness. She lets Storm know, hey, in the future, this is me letting you know this so that you can tell me to do this in the future, so on and so forth. But yeah, basically we know that Storm is having this child because of how she describes herself, how she was depicted. She talks about how she wishes that she had the same white hair as her mother, but she got her father's black hair instead. Now, that could be anybody. That could really be anybody. However, I think what is the real tell is when she talks about the powers that she possesses. She reveals that she has Storm's abilities, but she also mentions having fangs like her father. Now, that opens the door up to a lot of different things. I was of the belief that this was a child that was sired with Wolverine. Apparently, that may not be the case, and the timeline is probably not going to allow for Wolverine and Storm to be doing much of anything for the foreseeable future. It could just as easily be maybe T'Challa's child, but T'Challa is occasionally depicted with fangs, but I don't think that it's him. The only character with any regularity who is depicted with having fangs is Blade. We haven't really seen Storm interact with Blade on any meaningful level since her series began, and we haven't really seen it much on Blade's side of things either, so I don't know. But that, to me, is my best guess. When I was joking about this on Threads earlier today, Marewa actually replied to it and basically said that the father has not been revealed. Like, he literally says there's still a hunt for Marvel characters with black hair and fangs. So, I don't know. You guys tell me who you think the pappy is. Me, personally, I almost kind of want to put my money on Blade. The next thing is what's going on with Colossus. A question I think some people asked or wondered, but didn't really put a whole heap of a lot of thought into was why Colossus was wearing a helmet, like a full-on helmet that was blocking his face and covering his entire head. Why was he doing this? Why was he pretending to be somebody else? And the truth is because, well, for one, he's been going through a lot. He wore the helmet that he wore because, and this is something I think was actually even talked about in X-Force when the reveal was made that the helmet he wore basically blocked out his thoughts. It's why when Captain Britain and Ascani were trying to read his mind, why they couldn't get anything. It's why they assumed that he was a robot. That was kind of the whole deal there. And I think that got lost in translation as well as the series kind of got canceled and came to a close. But the thing that I really appreciate about this is that we get a little more clarification for it. But if you read any of the X-Force during the Krakoan era, you would totally see where he's coming from. The fact that he was mentally manipulated for the entirety of the Krakoan era. This man went through multiple Hellfire galas, not in his right mind. That the Chronicler, who was working for Mikhail Rasputin, was manipulating him, basically reality warping him into completely thinking and acting differently than what Colossus normally would. It's why when the Krakoan era kicked off, so many people were thrown off by Colossus's new attitude, and it was because he was not himself, and he is tired of being mentally manipulated. So that's why he was wearing the helmet. We learned that. Or rather, kind of just more deeply, we learn about that situation in this. And I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't like the way X-Force was handled as far as that particular aspect of it. And maybe if the book would have been allowed to cook a little bit longer, maybe they would have have done the reveal a little bit better, but that's coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and we're that's a different timeline that we have been cut off from. So I can't just go off of that. But once Colossus, made his presence known, I did feel it made a lot of sense for him to be on X-Force, considering, what we had seen of X-Force in the previous iteration. So, yeah, like I said, it's one of those things. It makes me sad because I hate when I see writers I really like wind up on a book that they're doing a very specific type of storytelling. They're doing long-form storytelling, and the book doesn't get to run the distance to actually see any of it come to fruition. It sucks. It sucks. That said, we get another thing that kind of, it doesn't suck because it's bad, but it sucks because it's sad. And that is what's going on with Siren. For those who do not know, Siren has been enslaved by Dr. Ellis at Grey Malkin Prison, what used to be the Westchester Mansion, the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. And Siren is one of the trustees, alongside Wildchild and Blob. What's really kind of sad about this is that Siren is being allowed to go to the vigil, but not because, I genuinely just get to go. I broke away from the trustees. I'm no longer at Grey Malkin. No, she is still under Dr. Ellis's control. That has not changed. Nothing has changed there. And what's worse is that she's only there because Dr. Ellis wanted her to be there. They were trying to test the defenses of the vigil to see what they can and cannot get away with. And we almost immediately get to see a testament of that Siren was actually able to go. There was nothing that stopped her from being able to enter the vigil. What was really telling, though, is that, yes, Siren being there, Banshee recognizing Siren's voice, because while he is largely known for being able to emit sonic screams, he's also able to detect sounds and vibrations that the normal human ear could not. And he detects his daughter Siren singing a song, and he rushes straight to her. And when he gets there, she's very somber, and she's even trying to warn him that, look, stay away from me because this is only going to make things worse. I don't want to have to fight anybody. I could be at any moment forced to fight you. And she ends up leaving. But it's basically just setting an ominous tone, because also in this issue, and you can kind of tie these into one another, as Siren was pointing out that she was there to test the defenses to see what was possible, it's then revealed Grey Malkin is monitoring the whole situation. Not just Siren, they were monitoring to see who they could take next. And they go after a mutant that I think is going to surprise some people, but you have to understand why this is important. They went after Dazzler. Not because Dazzler is the most powerful mutant. I mean, Dazzler is very powerful. More powerful than I think a lot of people give Dazzler credit for. But they took Dazzler because she has been the face of a mutant revolution, mutant sentiment. And while I would forgive you for not recognizing that immediately, things that we always have to remember, Dazzler is a celebrity. She's basically the Taylor Swift. She's the T-Swizzle of the Marvel Comics universe. She writes songs about mutant solidarity and treating mutants with humanity, and also bridging the gap for a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have a reason to like mutants at all. And Dr. Ellis having Dazzler in her back pocket is going to be huge, because I can promise you, she's not just going to waste this. She is going to very likely use the very same methods that she has concocted in order to enslave people like Siren, Blob, and Wildchild, to enslave Dazzler and force her to spread Dr. Ellis's own message of anti-mutant sentiment. Now, I know some people will probably not be able to get jiggy with the fact that Dazzler willingly gives herself up, but it was a self-sacrifice just in terms of, I don't think Dazzler fully understands exactly what Ellis is going to do to her, but she ultimately wanted to stop Ellis from hurting anyone else, and that's just kind of a part of who Dazzler is. So yeah, honestly, what she did isn't very surprising. It's silly and stupid, but it wasn't surprising that she did it at all. If anything, it was on brand for her. as a character. And then last, but most certainly not least, and I think this is the one that I was the most surprised by, is there's a reveal regarding 3K. Now, we don't get the reveal of who the leader of 3K actually is, but we do get the reveal of 3K's meaning, like what the name 3K means. I actually thought it was a very unfortunate name, as did a lot of other people, because, you know, 3K, what do you think of? Like, I think if you're a white person or like a non-black person, I think, yeah, you're probably not gonna, you know, think about this like off the top of your head. But most black readers that I talked to, they kind of knew where I was coming from. That, you know, 3K is basically, is like, oh, so the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, cool. Awesome. But no, that's not what it's for. Though I'm sure that, you know, maybe that was not lost on Jed Mackay when he conceived the name for the team. But basically, what 3K is it's the timeline. And something that gets brought up by the close of this issue, 3K mentions that by year 1000, humans held sway over this world. In the year 2000, they began to realize that would not always be so, and lashed out in their fear. By the year 3000, there will be no humans. By the year 3000, there will be no Earth. Just a forgotten name, a new Krakoa in its place, with its rightful children given dominion over it. Basically just going to say that that is the promise of 3K. Now, that's a long timeline, but this is something that actually ties back into the Krakoan era. Now, for those who may or may not remember, during the Krakoan era, it was revealed that, by Orcus, mind you, that eventually at some point, humans would stop being born. And more specifically, mutant births would go up, meaning that there was going to reach a point where humanity would literally cease to exist as we know it today. Anyone born in the future would be a mutant, most likely, on some level. Basically, it'd be My Hero Academia around this. It'd be like 80% of the world got powers, and like 20% don't. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's walking around Omega level. It just, you know, because once again, we gotta remember there are characters in the My Hero Academia universe who, they have powers, but their powers are useless. In terms of, you know, being a superhero. You know, case in point, Deku's mom. But no, in this particular instance, what we're talking about is, yes, there would come a point where humanity is not a thing, and that is 3K's goal, is to usher that new world in and create a new Krakoa, which I'm totally fine with. I mean, yeah, hey, let them have it. You know, let these guys have it. Now, the question becomes, and this is not answered this issue, who is the leader of 3K? This is something that we're probably going to learn very soon. It's been kind of hinted at and teased at that it's on the way. The reveal is finally going to happen, and I can go ahead and tell you right now, it does not happen in X-Men number 19 that came out this week as well. But what we do get is 3K has revealed themselves to the world, you know, not just to mutants. I mean, though they do make their announcement during the vigil, and they do paint the Alaskan X-Men as the bad guys, because they reveal footage of Magneto using a Sentinel to fight against other mutants, basically using a symbol of oppression to fight back against their fellow mutant, and basically kind of, you know, pulling a Magneto against Magneto.
Why? Why have you turned against your own kind?
What's happening here is that 3K is making power plays. They're making moves, and it's not just to the mutants. They're letting humans know that they're on borrowed time. Something that, well, technically was a plot point of the Krakoan era during House of X. It was never done quite in this way. Not on this level, and they're also making it very obvious who they are, with the exception of the leader. We see Wire, Cassandra Nova, and Astra, and Joseph, and eventually we'll learn who this other guy is. But I've seen some people have different opinions about who it could potentially be. I honestly don't know. I don't have any idea who this could potentially be. Could this be someone that was lost to the Krakoan era? Part of me wonders if it's a clone of Charles. Considering that he's dressed eerily like him, could potentially be the case. It could also not be the case. But whoever it is, it's someone who I think has ties to that era. It's someone from that era who we've just not been thinking about. There are multiple characters that, you know, could kind of fit that bill. I'll definitely tell you, just based on, you know, thought patterns, I've seen some people try and say that it's Legion. Legion is not tamping that hair down like that big dog. Not to mention he's talking very different from how Legion would normally speak. I think it's a clone of somebody. That's the best I got. I love this. This issue was great. It did all the things I felt that it needed to do. It was not just a love letter to the Krakoan era, but it was also a love letter to the, you know, From the Ashes books that we got and the ones that are no longer with us. Like, you know, NYX gets to have a nice little wrap-up. X-Force gets to have a nice little wrap-up. I think the only book that actually didn't really get to have anything close to that was X-Factor. I mean, I could be wrong. But, yeah, I think everybody literally got a chance to wrap their shit up except for X-Factor. That was sad. I would have liked to have seen a little... because hell, Dazzler got to have a nice little moment. When, you know, for those who don't remember, Dazzler had her own series there for a hot minute. And Mystique didn't get really anything either. I mean, Mystique and Destiny show up, but they don't really get to do much. Yeah, I don't know. I still dug it, though. I think that this did exactly what it needed to do. Now, what they really need to get to is trying to figure out a way to stop Wolverine from clapping Storm's cheeks again. That's what I need. I think that's actually what 3K needs to be focused on. If 3K, if you'll do that, you have my vote. I'm joking. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. We out.